Let's dive into one of the most powerful ideas in all of literature, Ernest Hemingway's theory that what a writer leaves out is way more important than what they put in. We're going to see how silence can speak so much louder than words.
Okay, so picture this. We're at a train station in Spain. It's hot, it's dusty, and we're dropping into the middle of a really tense, quiet conversation where the air is just thick with everything that's not being said.
So we're dropped right into this exchange from Hemingway's famous story, Hills Like White Elephants. You have a man calling something a simple operation. You have a woman who's just staring out at these dry, sun-bleached hills. And hanging right there between them is this one single, terrifying word that neither of them will say out loud.
Yeah, the entire story, all of its power, hinges on that one unspoken word, abortion. The tension, the weight of it all, it comes from this deliberate omission. But you gotta ask, why? Why would a writer do this? Why would you leave out the single most important piece of information? Well, this question takes us right to the core of Hemingway's genius.
And the answer? It lies in a principle that Hemingway himself cooked up, a whole philosophy that would pretty much change modern literature forever. It's called the Iceberg Theory.
The best way to get this is to just think about its namesake, an iceberg, right? You only ever see the tip, that little bit sticking out of the water. But you can feel, there is this immense, unseen mass just beneath the waves. Hemingway believed a great story should work exactly the same way. The words you read on the page, that's just the visible 1/8. The real story, the real meaning, that's all happening below the surface.
Hemingway himself put it perfectly in his book on bullfighting. He said, the dignity of movement of an iceberg is due to only 1/8 of it being above water. His whole argument was that if a writer truly knows their subject, I mean everything, a character's history, their secrets, their fears, they can leave all those details out, and you, the reader, will still feel their weight.
And this is the crucial part. This is not a shortcut. It's not about being lazy. A writer can't just leave things out because they don't know the answer themselves. No, they have to know everything that's submerged. That deep knowledge is what gives the surface-level story its power, its truth. It's really the difference between an empty hole in the page and a deep, deep well.
So, if the text we're reading is just the tip of the iceberg, what exactly makes up that massive submerged part of the story? Well, to understand that, we actually have to look at a little bit of psychology.
So there's this fascinating parallel here between Hemingway's theory and Sigmund Freud's model of the human mind. Think about it. The text we read, the dialogue, the actions, what we see, that's like our conscious ego. But the subtext, all the trauma, the emotion, the backstory, that's the vast, powerful unconscious, the id, driving everything from way down below the surface.
And this makes total sense for Hemingway's time, right? He was part of the lost generation, people who had survived the horrors of the First World War. For them, trauma wasn't something you just talked about. It was this constant, unspoken presence in the room. And his writing style perfectly mimics that psychological defense mechanism. You focus on the concrete, the simple things, to avoid the overwhelming pain underneath.
What's so cool about this style of writing is that it does something really profound. It completely changes your role as the reader. You're not just a passive audience anymore. You become an active participant, a detective even.
One scholar, Hubert Zaff, argues that Hemingway's work is actually designed to frustrate what he calls the daydreamer's reader. The person who just wants easy answers and escapism. Instead, it demands a reflective reader, someone who's willing to do the work, to use their own brain to fill in the gaps. The omission isn't a mistake, it's a feature. It's designed to engage you on a much, much deeper level.
Hemingway famously said that a writer needs a built-in, shock-proof shit detector. Well, his prose is designed to be that detector for you, the reader. By absolutely refusing to tell you how to feel, it just strips away all the sentimental fluff and forces you to confront the raw, unfiltered truth of a situation.
Let's take another one of his famous stories, The Killers. You've got two hitmen who walk into a diner to kill a man named Ole Anderson. We get pages and pages of just mundane dialogue about the dinner menu, but we never ever find out why. Why do they want to kill this guy?
And that's the whole point. A young guy in the story, Nick, he's horrified, and he asks one of the hitmen, what's the idea? What's the reason for all this? And the answer he gets is just bone-chilling. There isn't any idea. In Hemingway's modern world, violence and death can be completely random, completely meaningless. And by omitting the motive, he forces us to stare right into that terrifying void.
So when you step back, what makes this technique so revolutionary?
I mean, it's about so much more than just leaving things out.
Look, Hemingway wasn't the first writer to use omission. Edgar Allan Poe did it all the time to build suspense for some big, spooky, gothic reveal. But here's the crucial difference. For Poe, the secret is always told in the end. For Hemingway, that omission is a permanent void. It represents the nothingness, that existential dread that his characters have to learn to live with. It's not just a plot device, it's an entire worldview.
So when you boil it all down, the Iceberg Theory is just this masterclass in literary power. It turns you, the reader, into a co-creator of the story. It builds this incredible emotional way through subtext, it cuts through all the cheap sentiment, and it perfectly mirrors both our own individual traumas and that big existential void of the modern world.
And really, that leaves us with one final thought. Just think about your own life for a second. That look a friend gives you across a room, that heavy silence in a car ride, that feeling you get when you walk into a house. So often, the most profound, the most truthful moments are the ones that are never, ever spoken. And that, right there, is the enduring power of the iceberg.